First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, which is the true name of the Heavenly Father and of His Son, who the world calls Jesus Christ. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai broke it down to all the Akim out there that's pushing this truth and sincerity, while Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai broke it down to all the elders out there who labor in this truth. Today's date is May 6th, all right? And in this video, I'm gonna touch on the 12 tribes chart. All right, and the tribes that I'm gonna touch on is the tribe of Reuben and the tribe of Gad, which are so-called Native Americans and Seminole Indians. All right, you got lots of people bucking up against the 12 tribes chart. All right, but history and facts in the Bible just proves that the so-called Native Americans are the tribe of Gad, and that the Seminole Indians is of the tribe of Reuben, and the authenticity of this chart. All right, so I'm about to just go in. I'm about to go into it. I'm gonna start at verse 1 in Genesis 49. So this is Genesis 49:1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Okay, so this is talking about the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. All right, so Israel, his name was Jacob, but his name got changed to Israel. Okay, and then his offsprings, his 12 sons, the 12 patriarchs, came forth, the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, or the children of Israel rather. Okay, this is not a religion. This is your nationality. All right. Verse 3, Reuben, thou art my firstborn. And Reuben is the so-called Seminole Indians. Okay, the Seminole Indians that was living over there in Florida before those devils came over there and removed them. It says, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Okay, when you go into that word, dignity, it says elevation, exaltation, dignity, swelling, uprising. And then we go to the etymology of the word. Dignity, privilege, honor. Okay, worthiness, worthy, proper, fitting. Because when you do your research on the Seminole Indians, okay, the so-called white man was trying to get the Seminole Indians to sign peace treaties and stuff like that. So they could just give up their land. But the Seminole Indians, they didn't want to do that. They wasn't falling. They wasn't falling for that. Okay? That's why they had great dignity, all right? They were noble. Then it says, and the excellency of power. When we go into the word power, it says strong, mighty, fierce. Okay? Fierce, strong. Because the so-called Seminole Indians, which is the tribe of Reuben, all right? When you do your research and when you go into scriptures, it will tell you that they were mighty men. All right, they were strong men of war. All right, and I'm gonna prove it. Let's see where I'm gonna go first. Okay, I'm gonna play this clip right here because this video right here is gonna go hand in hand with what the scripture just said.
The Seminole Indians lived in the Florida area. Their tribe had lived there for hundreds of years. As settlers came from Europe to settle the United States, the government wanted to kick out the American Indian tribes and move them farther west. Of course, the American Indians didn't think this was fair.
You see that the Seminole Indians didn't think that was fair. Dignity right there. Okay, they had common sense.
Seminole Indians went to war to fight for their land.
And they went to war to fight for their land. Power. Excellency of power. Which I just read.
Were led by a Seminole Indian named Osceola. The war was very costly for the United States and it lasted 7 years. One of the biggest problems that the settlers had was that the Seminole Indians would allow African Americans who escaped slavery to live with them. This made farmers and plantation owners angry. The war began.
Oh, Salakia, I gotta prove 1 point. I gotta prove 1 point real quick. Hold on. Because what he just said just even further validated the chart. Okay. So this is Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 33. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel, which is the northern kingdom, and the children of Judah, which is the southern kingdom, were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. You see that? So the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. Where? In America. Okay, and that's where on the 12 tribes chart. Okay, because that chart is mainly for Babylon. All right, which is America. And then my point when I read it, I'm just read it again. It said, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. See, they were excellent in power, man. Strong, mighty, and fierce. Okay? Not willing to give up their land, dignity right there, and willing to fight back. And the war lasted 7 years. Okay? They were strong, mighty, and fierce, man. Okay? That's the tribe of Reuben right there. Now, Slocky, I just had to prove those points. Now back to the clip.
After the War of 1812, the United States government thought that since they finished one war, they should continue on and go fight the Seminole Indians. They were unsuccessful. The Seminoles would not back down. Later, the United States government took a few Seminole leaders on a tour of Arkansas and Oklahoma, treating them to lavish food and luxury. They hoped this would convince the leaders to move their tribe, but it did not. At this time, President Andrew Jackson...
Dignity. Okay? Dignity. This fits what I just read to a T. Okay?
Determined to remove the Seminole tribe. He fought a difficult battle with them, and many of the Seminole retreated into the Everglade forest. The remaining Seminole Indians surrendered and agreed to leave. They had to travel the famed Trail of Tears to Indian Territory west of the Mississippi River.
Okay, and eventually, he just said that they eventually had to give up, man. Why? Because that was just a part of prophecy. Okay, and I'm gonna get it. It says, unstable as water. Oh, Salaki, this Genesis 49:4. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, and defiled thou it. He went up to my couch. You see. So the tribe of Reuben, they wasn't going to excel, man, in these wars because of what he did to Jacob. He took one of Jacob's concubines and slept with her. So I'm gonna get some more clips on the Seminole Indians. Here we go. The battle for paradise, the first and second Seminole Wars. Okay, because like I said earlier, the so-called Seminole Indians were men of war. Okay, they went to war, man.
The Seminole, a group of Native Americans who lived in northern Florida, had been forced from their homeland by the U.S. government. Devastated by war, they had everything taken from them, and had been denied.
Okay, Salakia, and that goes in to what I just read when Jacob told Reuben that thou shalt not excel. You see? Let me just get the etymology for that word, excel. Word excel, to surpass, be superior to rise, surpass, eminent, okay, rise high. You see that? They wasn't gonna excel, man. They wasn't going to rise high. They wasn't going to go out on top, man, because of the prophecies in the Bible.
The rights to their land, forcing them to live in a harsh, isolated environment. The story of how they got this way is one of the least noted events in U.S. Indian history, but also one of the darkest. In the early 1500s, Spain claimed Florida as part of their growing empire. The peninsula was home to several Native American tribes, but many of them would die of diseases brought by Europeans. In the early 1700s, some of the Creek Indians migrated from Georgia and Alabama.
Salakia. I just had to interrupt. Diseases, right? and you got these people, these unlearned people that say that the so-called Native Americans or the so-called Seminole Indians doesn't go through any of the curses, which indicates that they can't either they can't read or they don't read or they don't know history. But we're going to get scriptures on that real soon.
To northern Florida. Once they settled here, this renegade tribe became separate and began to be called Seminole, which means wild and undomesticated. It would lead to the English word for the new tribe, the Seminole. The Seminole farmed, raised livestock, and traded with both Spain and Britain. They lived peacefully in Florida, but a great change was happening just north of them. Britain's colonies had formed themselves into the United States of America. The Seminole didn't know it at the time, but this event would change their people, land, and history forever. With European settlers came another ethnic group, Africans. America had thousands of black slaves.
And they weren't Africans, all right? Those are Israelites, okay? Israelites, not Africans.
And when some escaped from farms and plantations in the South, they often went to the closest place that they could be safe, Florida. Here they found refuge among the Seminole. The plantation owners were outraged at this. Multiple skirmishes between the Americans and the Indians in Florida led to more and more violence and hatred. Spain did not have enough power in Florida to stop the Indians from raiding towns in the South, so in 1817, the U.S. government declared war on the Florida Seminole. Bloodshed began almost immediately. On November 30th, a group of Seminole warriors ambushed a U.S. Army boat. 4 children, 6 women, and 34 soldiers were killed during the attack. After this, the U.S. government sent soldiers to Florida, led by the infamous General Andrew Jackson. In 1817, the U.S. soldiers defied international laws by crossing the Georgia-Florida border with 2,000 American soldiers and Creek warriors,
who the Seminole now hated. They left a trail of destruction in their wake, burning Indian villages throughout northern Florida, enslaving runaway slaves in Seminole, and taking supplies from them. The Seminole tried to fight back, but were outnumbered and ill-equipped. Andrew Jackson did well in his fight against the Seminole, but he was soon going against orders. Among his prisoners taken in his campaign were 2 British citizens. The general accused them of working for the Seminole and had them executed. This was just the start of a series of U.S. military mistakes by Jackson. Jackson then marched across Florida and captured the Spanish capital of Pensacola, throwing out their governor. The general's brash tactics angered members of the U.S. government because he had risked the peace between America, Spain, and Britain. Nevertheless, his actions showed Spain that they could not control Florida any longer, and in 1821, they sold it to the U.S. for $5 million. 2 years later, on September 6, 1823, the Seminoles signed the Treaty of Moultrie Creek, which forced them from their homeland and into Florida's swampy interior. Most of the land was unfertile, and the treaty had also purposefully cut off the Seminoles' reservation from the coasts, so they could not trade with Spanish and British merchants as they once had to get money. The Seminole villages on the reservation also continued to be raided by Florida settlers, even though the treaty had forbid it. Starvation, disease, and poor living conditions caused the death of many of the Seminole, but they were not defeated, and the conflict that was coming would be like nothing America had ever faced before. 1830, a dark year for the Native American tribes east of the Mississippi. Andrew Jackson, the Seminoles' old enemy, is now president, and is once again trying to take their land, and he has the perfect tool to do so, the Indian Removal Act. This bill would force thousands of Native Americans out of their homelands and into the Indian Territory in present-day Oklahoma.
And this was a dangerous and difficult time in which Native peoples had tough choices to make. Were they going to, in essence, side with the U.S. In hopes of, by being agreeable and cooperative, preserve their homelands and their rights, or was the right thing to do to resist the military power of the U.S. as represented in leaders like Andrew Jackson? It's hard to know what the right choice was.
Most would choose to go with Jackson. In 1832, the Seminole were asked to sign the Treaty of Payne's Landing. The treaty would force them to move west and become again part of their enemy, the Creek tribe. Most of the marks of the Seminole chiefs appear on the treaty, but they later claimed that they had not signed it, saying they had been faked. The Seminole refused to leave, which meant that the U.S. would have to remove them by force. On December 28, 1835, the Second Seminole War got off to a bloody start. 180 Indians ambushed a group of U.S. soldiers led by Major Dade. Only 2 Americans would survive the attack. The government sent men to fight the Seminole, but they had no idea what they were getting into. The Seminole did not use standard European tactics like the Americans did, but guerrilla warfare, ambushing soldiers and then disappearing back into the swamp where they couldn't be found. They rallied around a group of intelligent Seminole chiefs, but most notably, Osceola. Osceola organized many of the attacks and carried a great influence among the other chiefs. The Seminole warriors numbered only 800, but were willing to fight until the last man died.
And were willing to fight until the last man died. You see that? The Seminole Indians. And that goes in to what Jacob told Reuben, man. Okay? Excellency of power. Okay? And what does power mean? It said fierce. It said fierce, strong, and mighty, man. All right? They were mighty men. They were fierce men. Men of war. Men of valor. All right? The tribe of Reuben. They were warriors, man. Okay? And I am going to grab scriptures on that too.
Generals tried to find and capture the Seminole, but few had much success. One, Thomas Jessup, resorted to trickery, capturing Osceola and 80 other Seminole during negotiations under a flag of truce. Osceola died in 1838, imprisoned in South Carolina. The Seminole fought on. The conditions in Florida were horrible. one soldier saying that, if the devil owned both hell and Florida, he would rent out Florida and live in hell. For every man that died in battle, 3 died of diseases. Heat and rain also made life miserable for the Americans. The Seminole could not fight forever, though. General Jessup had not only captured Osceola, but had brought with him 9,000 men to fight the Seminole. He had also called in the Navy and the Marine Corps, making it the only time that all 3 branches of the military would fight in an Indian war. When Colonel Zachary Taylor replaced Jessup in Florida, he defeated the Seminole at the Battle of Okeechobee, destroying the Indians' defensive line. This battle, and others, slowly drove the Seminole further and further south. Because of this war, the thousands of Seminole in Florida were forced to break up into small groups. Their economy and organization began to break down, but some refused to surrender. In 1842, the government put an end to the war, but the Seminole were devastated. Over 4,000 had gone west to the Indian Territory during the 7-year conflict. These exiled Seminole traveled over 1,200 miles away from their homeland, never to return. But the price of this victory was high. It cost the lives of over 1,400 men and $40 million to remove them. Only 200 to 300 Seminole would remain in Florida, hiding in the Everglades. They would fight another war with the U.S., the third and last Seminole War. But afterward, they would have become a forgotten tribe, just shadows of a people whose homeland was taken from them. The Seminole Wars had taught them to be strong and to survive. They never surrendered. Today, the Seminoles still live in Florida, combining traditional ways of life with modern ones. The tribe has also thrived off the tourist industry and owns the Hard Rock Cafe chain.
Alright, Con. That's the point right there, alright? So you see that? So the Seminole Indians never gave up, alright? And I'm just going to read that scripture again, just to tie it all in. It says, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Okay, going to the word power. It says strong, mighty, and fierce, alright? They were mighty men, man. They were strong. They were strong men. Okay? And that goes into the wars that they were having with the Europeans, man. They were willing to fight. They were willing to fight for their land, and they were not willing to give up their land, all right? And then it says, unstable as water, thou shalt not excel. Exactly. They won't prosper, all right? Because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defiledest thou it. He went up to my couch, all right? See that? So that's why they were able to be conquered, man. Because of the prophecy that Jacob had given them. Now I'm about to go into their garments. All right. Here's their garments. Okay. That look like fringes. Look like fringes to me. See that? That look like fringes to me. I don't know about y'all, but that look very much like fringes to me. And where's fringes at? This is Numbers chapter 15 and verse 38. It says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, and the tribe of Reuben is a child of Israel. So speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the border of their garments throughout their generations, and that they may put upon the fringe of the borders a ribbon of blue." You see that? Borders of their garment. See it? Skirt, corner of garment. All right? The border of their garment. And that's what I see. That's what I see right there. Okay. And right here, more proof, further proof that they're of ancient Hebrew Israelite descent. Okay. And And here goes the weapons of the so-called Seminole Indians. Seminole hunters use bows and arrows. Fishermen usually use fishing spears. Traditionally, Seminole warriors fired their bows or fought with tomahawks. But by the time the Seminole tribe had united in the 1700s, they also fought with guns. Okay, see, they were warriors. Um, let's see. Uh, Salakia. Oh yeah, okay, here we go, right here. So as we as you heard in the video, you heard about the Indian Removal Act, okay? Which which moved the so-called Seminole Indians um out of their land, all right? So I'm gonna gonna get to the point. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just start up here. In the early days of its existence, the fledgling United States government carried out a policy of displacement and extermination against the American Indians in the eastern U.S., systematically removing them from the part of white settlement. Until 1821, Florida remained under the control of the government of Spain, but the U.S. territories of Georgia, Alabama, and Louisiana were in its covetous next door neighbors. It was clear that the U.S. wanted the Spaniards out of Florida and was willing to consider any means, including warfare, to acquire the rich land. So this was all trying to acquire the rich land that our brothers and sisters had. All right. Um, when the I'm right here. When the Mascoutche tribes in Alabama, whom English speakers erroneously called Creeks, rose up against the white settlers in the Creek War of 1813 to 14. The brutal the brutal repression and disastrous treaty forced upon them by General Andrew Jackson sent thousands of the most determined warriors and their families migrating southward to take refuge in Spanish Florida. There they joined the descendants of many other tribes whose members had lived all across Florida forests for thousands of years. The Indians who constituted the nucleus of this Florida group thought of themselves as yacht Seminole or free people because for centuries their ancestors had resisted the attempts of the Spaniards to conquer and convert them, as well as the attempts of the English to take their lands and use them as military pawns. Soon, white Americans would begin to call all of the Indians in Florida by that name, Seminoles. All right, see that? So that's the summary of the Indian Removal Act to remove the so-called Seminole Indians out of their lands. Okay. So that's Reuben right there. Um, and then after I break down Gad, I'm going to tie it all in. Okay, with the Salakia, with the scriptures. Now I'm about to go to Deuteronomy, the 33rd chapter. So this is Deuteronomy 33 and 6. It says, "Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few." Right, and let not his men be few, okay? Because because it's because it's 144,000 of the tribe of Reuben. Remember, okay? There is 144,000 of the elect men of the tribe of Reuben. So the Most High always preserves a remnant of his people, even though it may seems like they all have been eradicated off the face of the earth. They're still here, man. Okay, we have the nation of Israel have 144,000 strong, mighty, fierce Reubenites here today, man. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay. Here goes more information about the tribe of Reuben. This is the marriage, okay? The Seminole Indians marriage, okay? It says traditional marriage was matrilocal, and polygamy usually uh sorrow occurred occurred until well within the 20th century when state laws banning polygamy took precedence. Okay, so we see here that the so-called Seminole Indians did take part did partake in polygamy, and guess what? Polygamy is a part of the Israelite culture. Okay, that's in our laws to have more than one wife. You see, so they still had that. Okay, all right. So now Reuben, that's done, and now I'm about to go into the tribe of Gad. Right. So that's clear evidence that the tribe of Reuben, okay, that the tribe of Reuben is definitely the so-called Seminole Indians today, and that they are Israelites. Okay. So this is Genesis 49 and 19. This is Gad. A troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Okay. And when you go into that word troop, it says a band, troop, marauding band, troop, band of divisions, army, okay? Army, band of men, company, troop of robbers. You see that? And when you go into and when you go into Salakia, research Salakia. Oh yeah, right here. The battle of Timbers, okay? On August 20th, 1794. Salakia, I was just looking for I was looking for a word, okay? So the Battle of Timbers on August 20th, 1794 was the last major conflict of the Northwest Territory Indian War between the Native Americans and the United States. At the battle near present-day Toledo, Ohio, General Anthony Wayne led U.S. troops, okay, the troops to victory over a confederation of Indian warriors whose leaders included Chief Blue Jacket of the Saunas and Chief Little Turtle of the Miamis. The Treaty of Greenville, signed the following year, opened up much of present-day Ohio to white settlers. You see that? Led U.S. troops. That was the troops. That was the troops that that overcame Gad. That was the troops. The U.S. troops overcame Gad and did what? Take their land, man. Okay, but he shall overcome at the last. Exactly, at the last, the tribe of Gad is going to overcome, man. Because again, we have 144,000 of the tribe of Gad that's going to get raised up. Okay, and it's getting risen up. All right. So now to go in the tribe of Gad, the so-called Native Americans. And when you go into the Native American garments, see, Fringes. They wore fringes, man. See? Look at this one right here. See the border? Keeping the laws. That's what they came over here to do. Keep the laws. See? Fringes. So that's another undeniable fact of the so-called Native Americans, man. They was wearing fringes. Why? Because that was their custom to do so. Okay? See? And now let's go to this video. It's titled Native Americans Wrote in Ancient Hebrew.
Ancient Egyptians. Let me show you one more connection. In 1860, David Wyrick, he's a guy who surveyed the Newark earthworks. He was digging into a mound near those earthworks, and he found a wooden coffin made of oak. They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box. It was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented shut. Here. This, by the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man in
Ohio. Then I just read about Ohio.
A little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here. At first they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found some rabbis living in the area, and the rabbis looked at that, and they could read it. They said it was an old...
See that? That's Paleo Hebrew. Lashawan, that's Lashawan Quadash. See that? Paleo Hebrew, ancient Hebrew.
Block Hebrew, and it was a rendition of the Ten Commandments. Now,
the Ten Commandments. Shalaki, I just had to grab this scripture. The Ten Commandments. Why would they have the Ten Commandments over here if they weren't Israelites? Why? Can anybody answer me that? Why? So this is 2 Ezra 13 and 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, who Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land. You can read that in 2 Kings 17th chapter, I believe. But they took this counsel among themselves. So the 10 tribes took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go into a further country where never mankind dwelt. And nobody was dwelling in the so-called Americas. Okay? That, verse 42, that they might keep their statutes which they never kept in their land. You see? And they enter into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river, for the Most High then shewed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Ashereth. Then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come. You see that, man? So in the so-called Americas, they came over here to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. All right? Now back to the video.
this is another piece. Block Hebrew. They said they'd never seen anything like it. Mainstream archaeologists at the time called this a hoax. But then in 1900, or just about after 1900, in Israel, they found the same block-style Hebrew writing. Mainstream archaeologists still dismissed the findings. They found it in Israel, and they found it in Ohio. But there was another stone that they found that they couldn't argue. This is the Bat Creek stone. It was found during the course of an official Smithsonian evacuation. The Smithsonian didn't understand the meaning of the writing on the stone. They thought it was Cherokee. Since it came from Cherokee country, they didn't realize that it's actually Hebrew. They had published this originally upside down. They threw it in a box at the bottom of the Smithsonian, put it in the basement. Many years later, a scholar took it out of the box, looked at it, and went, oh my gosh, it's upside down. It's Phoenician, ancient Hebrew.
Ah, Phoenician, ancient Hebrew. Hold on. And I believe the word Phoenician is just a Greek way of saying Canaanite. Okay, you see? See, that's Hebrew. That's Hebrew. You see that? That's the Hebrew characters. All right. Let me just type in ancient Hebrew now. For anybody that's simple. All right. I guess no. I want to get the one that I use. Oh yeah, here we go. You see? You see that? That's ancient Hebrew right there. That's the ancient Hebrew characters. Paleo Hebrew. Okay?
So what's going on here? What is that about? Where is that history? I'll show you in a few minutes, and we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to show you some more things that the Smithsonian, science, government, commerce colluded to erase. By the way, I want to thank the directors of the documentary Lost Civilizations of North America for bringing these stories to my attention. I was blown away. To find more, visit the website lostcivilizationdvd.com. Here's the thing we should be asking ourselves. I don't know the story of these. Do you know that? Did you know that? Do you live in Ohio and did you know that? Why not? Were the American Indians wronged? Yes. Yes. And that's what we focus on in America, is we were bad to the American Indians. Forget about it. It's in the past. The question should be the ones that the founders asked. Who are they? What knowledge do they have? Can you imagine the difference we would have now if we would put our differences aside and put our past in the past and concentrate on today?
All right. That's the point, because he's just going on and just saying all a bunch of nonsense. All right. And here goes another one. Hebrews were in ancient America. Solid evidence.
Colonists began settling in the land that would later become the United States of America. Many artifacts have been discovered which suggest...
Here it goes again. Ancient Hebrew, Moses and the Ten Commandments. In Ohio.
That one of the ancient Native American mound builder civilizations, which the U.S. calls Hopewell, are descendants of Hebrew people who migrated to ancient North America during the 500s BC, which is approximately the earliest estimated dates of the Hopewell mound builders in Florida, Tennessee, and Iowa. Yet there have been many people in the United States...
They said Florida, which when I just went into it, the breakdown of Reuben, the so-called Seminole Indians were living in Florida. You see? So that means what? They spoke Hebrew too. and they found those Hebrew artifacts, so they had Hebrew artifacts over there too. Further proof that the Seminole Indians are from the tribe of Reuben and that they are Hebrew Israelites. Okay?
Who insist that every single one of these artifacts are fake. My personal opinion is because it opposes the idea that nobody sailed to America before Christopher Columbus. But there's at least one extremely large piece of evidence carved right into the landscape near Fayetteville, Ohio, that can't be denied as solid evidence of Hebrew people in ancient North America. And you can see it right on Google Earth. But before we get into that, just a brief introduction. The Hopewell Mound Builders built hundreds of thousands of structures out of various types of earth materials. These structures included burial mounds, animal effigy mounds, forts, temples, and advanced geometric structures with lunar and solar alignments. Many of these structures have been leveled down and destroyed as the United States expanded west and built itself right over them, but some still exist today. Early U.S. settlers would create detailed survey drawings of some of these structures. There are a few good books which were published by the Smithsonian in the mid-1800s that show detailed survey drawings from the Ohio and New York areas. They're called Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, Aboriginal Monuments of New York, and Antiquities of New York. But there was a one-of-a-kind mound builder structure that was unlike all the rest, at least as far as I know. In 1823, Major Isaac Roberdeau of the United States Army Corps of Engineers created this survey drawing of a massive earth structure just southwest of present-day Fayetteville, Ohio. Notice the Hebrew oil lamp. Notice the 9-candle menorah. And notice other ancient and sacred symbols such as the compass and the square. Another drawing of this structure is included in one of the Smithsonian books I mentioned earlier, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley. And still, there are some who insist that this survey drawing was fake and that the structure never even existed. Unfortunately, the United States Army Corps of Engineers completely destroyed this structure in the early 1900s and leveled it into flat ground. But why? Was it an intentional attempt to erase this odd Hebrew structure from American history? Or was it simply out of carelessness and lack of respect for ancient American antiquities? I don't know. But here's the good news. They missed a spot. And you can see it right on Google Earth. Here's a satellite image of the area where the structure was said to have been located. It's just southwest of Fayetteville, Ohio, where the 131 and the 50 intersect, and it's all just farmlands and trees. Do you see the spot they missed? There it is, right there. The Hebrew letter Shin, or Sin. And it's okay if you didn't see it. I didn't see it either until someone pointed it out to me a few months ago. Now some of you may be saying, wait, but that's not on the survey drawing. And you're right. So I wonder if that's why they missed it. In 1823, that whole area was probably covered with thick forest, and who knows for how long after that. Perhaps still in the early 1900s when they leveled it down. So what we're looking at here are massive ditches that include the Hebrew letter Shin, or Sin. I'll leave.
Okay, and the Hebrew letter Shin or Sin, that's Yiddish. That's modern day Hebrew that the so-called Jews speak. Okay. That's actually the Shah, okay? That's the Shah and the Assyrian script, or the Assyrian Hebrew, okay? And here it goes right here. See? The Shin, which is actually Shah, okay? Let me get it. You see that? The Shah. See? Shah. But let me get the Assyrian one. Here we go. Shah. See? That's Shah. In the ancient Paleo Hebrew. Not Shin or Shin. Alright? Further proof that they're Israelites. Salakia. Where I was at.
research the significance of this letter, but it's a very sacred letter in the Hebrew alphabet. I snapped this screenshot on Google Earth in the fall of 2015, and yes, I didn't even notice the letter in over the year's time that I had it. But as you can see, the letter shows up very nicely because the crop fields surrounding it have been harvested. The reason why the letter and the other lines are still green is because of the plant growth down in the massive ditches. But even if you look at it on Google Earth at a time when the fields are green with crops, you can still see the letter. So go check it out. And if you're ever out that way, hey, maybe the landowner will even let you walk around it. It's worth a try, right? I wish I would have known about that letter when I was out there. I would have asked too. So why the ditches? Well, when the mound builders built their structures, they had to get the earth materials from somewhere, right? So they dug ditches. When you look at the survey drawings of other mound builder structures, oftentimes you'll see that they dug ditches and built the walls of earth right alongside the ditches. Now, I can't tell from the 1823 survey if there were ditches alongside its walls or not, but if there weren't any, then it's likely that the dirt came from those ditches that include the Hebrew letter. But either way, that letter is there, and it's huge. Now, I would love to see if a LiDAR image of this area can still detect any traces of the structure from the 1823 survey. So, if any of you watching this video have any connections to LiDAR imaging technology, please go do this site. That would be awesome to see if it picks anything up. Anyway, so there you have it. 5 ancient sacred Hebrew symbols right there at a Hopewell Mound Builder site in Ohio, with one of the symbols still there, carved into the landscape, staring us all in the face and telling us, yes, Hebrew people were here in ancient North America. In closing, among the many Hebrew-related artifacts here in the U.S., there was one that was dug out of a hill in 1826 near Palmyra, New York. It was an ancient record engraved on thin metal plates, which the mound builders also knew how to make. This record tells about a small group of Hebrew people who left Jerusalem in 600 BC, shortly before the Babylonians destroyed the city. This small group of Hebrews sailed to ancient America. Their record was printed into the English language.
The small group of Hebrews sailed to the Americas.
1830, and it's called the Book of Mormon. Mormon is the name of one of the last guys who wrote in the record in 385 AD after his people were slaughtered in a great war that lasted decades and culminated in what is now the state of New York. Mormon's son, Moroni, was the last guy who wrote in the record in 421 AD. The archaeologic record of the Hopewell Mound Builders strongly suggests that their civilization did end in New York around 400 AD. And there are Native Americans who will tell you that the Mound Builder civilization was mostly killed off in New York, but that some of them escaped southward to Kentucky, where they were finally destroyed. And the Book of Mormon also mentions this, that after the last great battle in New York, there were a few who escaped to the south, but were finally killed as well. So this ancient metal record that the Book of Mormon came from was originally written in a reformed Egyptian language. Some of the characters on the record are similar to some of the characters in the written language of the Algonquin Micmac Native Americans, whose written language is also a form of Egyptian called Hieratic Egyptian. And they had this language before the European settlers arrived. So how did the Micmacs have Hieratic Egyptian as their language? My opinion is that the language was handed down through the generations from the ancient Hebrews who came to North America 2,600 years ago.
Alright, that's the point, because we're not dealing with opinions. We're just dealing with facts, alright? So, that was further proof. That was further proof on that, alright? And let me get alright. Well, first of all, oh, here was more fringes. But first of all, the Seminole and the Native American tribes, they had chiefs or captains, okay, or rulers over them, all right? to what? To do what? Salakia, fight their to to be the heads, to be the heads over them, and that's a part of Israelite culture, man. To have chiefs and captains and rulers, overseers of the people. Okay, let me get that. This is Deuteronomy 1. No, it ain't 10. It's 15. I'm gonna start at verse. I'm just start at verse 14. And ye answered me and said, the thing which thou hast spoken is good for us to do. So I took the chiefs of your tribes. See that? We had chiefs, wise men, and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over fifties, and captains over tens, and officers among your tribes. And I charged your judges at that time, saying, hear the causes between your brethren, and judge righteously between every man and his brother and the stranger that is with him. You see that? So it was a part of Israelite customs to have chiefs of our tribes, man, and captains. You see? More proof that the Seminole Indians and that the so-called Native Americans are Israelites, man. All right. All right. So and then you have people that says that the so-called Seminole Indians and that the Native Americans doesn't go through any of the curses. Well, let's just see. So this is the atrocities against Native Americans. Numerous atrocities against Native Americans span the hundreds of years from the first arrival of European explorers to the modern era under a wide range of circumstances. Today, there are over 500 Native American tribes in the U.S., each with a distinct culture, way of life, and history. Even today, Native Americans face large challenges to cope with the disadvantages history has left them and ongoing cases of discrimination. 10 million plus estimated number of Native Americans living in land that is now the United States when European explorers first arrived in the 15th century. Less than 300,000 estimated number of Native Americans living in the United States, around 900. 5.2 million identified as American Indian or Alaska Native in the 2000. Wow. A history of atrocities. An estimated 12,000 years ago, a mass migration of nomadic people traveled across a land bridge that connected Asia to what is now Alaska. These people would come. These people would come to be called Native Americans. Okay, that's off because we just read in the Bible and we just heard in that video that they sailed here. Okay, and they didn't cross no land bridge. All right. All right. But anyway, numbering over 50 million and selling from the top of North America to the bottom of South America. By the time Christopher Columbus reached the Caribbean in 1492, historians estimated that there were 10 million indigenous peoples living in the U.S. territory. All right. Same thing I just read up there. Um, let's see. European expansions into North America, whether to find gold, escape religious persecution, or start a new life, led to the destruction of Native American livelihoods. This disease, okay, remember that word disease, was a major killer, followed by malnutrition, nutrition. Colonialists in search of gold staged violent ambushes on tribal villages, fueling animosity with natives. Several wars broke out between tribes and American settlers, which led to large death tolls, land dispossession, oppression, and blatant racism. Unlike the U.S. civil rights movement in the 1960s, which led to blanket legal reform, Native Americans gained civil and legal rights piece by piece. In 1924, the U.S. Congress passed the Indian Citizenship Act, giving Native Americans a dual citizenship. You're right. They were citizens of their sovereign native land as well as the United States. Let me skip down. All right. And here goes Christopher Colombo. Let's go to the diseases. Okay. The most the most significant reason for natives decline was disease, an invisible killer that wiped out an estimate an estimated 90% of the population. Unlike the Europeans and the Asians whose lifestyle had a long history of sharing close quarters with domestic animals, Native Americans were not immune to pathogens spread by domestic cows, pigs, sheep, goats, and horses. As a result, millions were killed by measles, influenza, whooping cough, uh, diphtheria, typhus, bubonic plague, cholera, scarlet fever, and syphilis. Spreading disease was not always intentional on the part of the colonists, but there were a few instances that confirmed Europeans' attempt to exterminate natives. In 1763, a particularly serious uprising threatened British garrisons in Pennsylvania, worried about limited resources and driven by atrocities committed by some Native Americans. Sir Geoffrey Amherst, commander-in-chief of British forces in North America, wrote to Colonel Henry Boquet at Fort Pitt, "You will do well to try to inoculate the Indians with smallpox by means of blankets, as well as to try every method that can serve to um, extirpate the execrable race." All right. So we see there that they brought all these diseases to the so-called Native Americans and Seminole Indians. All right, and that's all in the curses. Okay, so I'm going to go to Deuteronomy 20th chapter, and I'm go to matter of fact. First, I want to get this because they were left few in number. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just read the first precept that I had. So this is Deuteronomy 20 verse 25. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies. Okay, and they were smitten before the enemies, which was the so-called white man. Okay, the so-called Europeans. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and thou shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. You see? Verse 29. And thou shalt group at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Exactly, man. And they were spoiled. They were spoiled. And spoiled for what? For their land, man. All right? They were spoiled for their land. They just came, the so-called white man just came and stole their land. They spoiled. They spoiled them, man. All right? I'm trying to find few in number. Few and number. Slock, you just bear with me. Few and number. Alright, this is Deuteronomy 28 verse 62. And ye shall be left few in number. And that's what happened, man. They were left, the so-called native and Seminole Indians were left few in number. Hold on, Slock, you're trying to get back to the article. Okay, see, 10 million plus estimated number of Native Americans live in the land that is now the U.S. when European explorers first arrived. See that, and then less than 300,000 estimated number of Native Americans living in the United States, around 900. You see that? They were left few in number, man. See this compared to 10 million? Come on. And that's a curse in the Bible, man. They were left few in number, which further proves that they are Israelites. Okay? Now, I'm going to go to verse 60. It says, moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. You see? And the sickness and the diseases which I just read. The Native Americans and the Seminole Indians suffered, man. So they are indeed our brothers, man. Our brothers and sisters. You see? Disease, man. All of these diseases right here, man. That's our people. Because they are suffering the curses, man. They're suffering the curses. And you people to say that they're not suffering the curses, they are. Shalakia for getting roused up, I'm just passionate about this. You see? You see that? So yes, they are Israelites, okay, and that 12 tribes chart is accurate, all right. Um, and now I'm about to get to the scriptures about them being mighty men, okay, cause because they were indeed mighty men, all right. So I want to go to First Chronicles, fifth chapter, and then the 18th verse. It says, the sons of Reuben and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh. See, the sons of Reuben, the so-called Seminole Indians, and the half tribe of Salaki and the Gadites, which is the so-called North American Indians of Manasseh, of violent men able to bear buckler and sword and to shoot with bow, and skillful in war, were 444,703 score that went out to war. You see? You see that? Violent men. Strength, might. Okay? Force, army. You see? And when you go back to Genesis 49, you know what? Let me just get it. Genesis 49. Genesis 49 and 1. It says, Salakia, and 3. It says, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. You see? And going to the word power, what it says? Strong, mighty, and fierce. And that's what the so-called Seminole Indians were, man. They were strong, mighty, and fierce. All right? See? See, the Seminole warriors fired their bows or fought with tomahawks, but by the time the Seminole tribe had united in the 1700s, they also fought with guns. Okay? See, you see their weapons? They had weapons, man. Just for edification's sake. You see, look at that. Seminole tribe of Florida. History. No surrender. Dignity right there, man. See that? Look at that, man. That's our people, man. All right? That's our people. And they are from the tribe of Gad and of the tribe of Reuben, all right? And I'm gonna jump right back to First Chronicles. First Chronicles 5 and 18. It says, the sons of Reuben and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, all violent men men able to bear buckler and sword and to shoot with bow, and skillful in war. They were skillful in war, man. All right. They were also skillful in war. Now, I'm about to jump to staying in the same book of Chronicles. Go to 12. Hold on, Salakia. Yeah, 12 and 8. All right, cool. 12, still going. This is First Chronicles 12 and 8. And of the Gadites, there separated themselves unto David into the hold to the wilderness, men of might and men of war, fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler, whose faces were like the faces of lions, and were as swift as the roes upon the mountain. And when you do your research of the so-called Native Americans, they can run really fast, man. You see that? They were swift, so they were real fast, man. The so-called Native Americans. Okay. Now, let me see. Let me see if I could get it. Let me see. Let me see if I could get it. Um. Let's see. Let's see if this has something. Oh, Shalakia. Dang, I wanted to get that. Let's see what this has. All right. Well, this ain't really. Oh wait. Yeah. Oh yeah. This talking about Native Americans right here. See, I'm gonna start from right here. It says outstanding runners in such a culture would become key figures in holding together widespread associations such as the Iroquois Confederacy, or even loose groupings of proximal tribes by carrying news, and other urgent messages. A typical example of the role such runners played is recorded in Peter's uh, Nobukov's excellent book Indian Running. In the 1860s, a messenger runner of the Meskwaki tribe in his mid 50s ran 400 miles from Green Bay, Wisconsin, to warn Sauk Indians along the Missouri River of an enemy. You see that? He ran 400 miles in his mid 50s. Okay, and that's the Gadites. 400 miles. You see that? Hey man, this truth cannot be refuted, man. And I'm saying that boldly, man. All right. Um, Salakia. Now let's go back. And I'm gonna read that again. And of the Gadites, is First Chronicles 12 and 8. And of the Gadites, there separated themselves unto David, into the wilderness, men of might and men of war, fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler, whose faces were like the faces of lions, and were as swift as the roes upon the mountains. All right. Now, I'm about to jump to verse. So like jump to verse 37. It says, it says, and on the other side of Jordan, the Reubenites and the Gadites, and of the half tribe of Manasseh, with all manner of instruments of war for the battle, 120,000. All these men of war that could keep rank came with the perfect heart to Hebron to make David king over all Israel, and that all the rest also of Israel were of one heart to make David king. You see that, man? So, so that concludes this breakdown of Reuben and Gad, man, which are the so-called Seminole Indians, all right, and the so-called Native Americans, all right. Lord willing, if you Aki and few sisters were edified, just want to say call hello, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, With that being said, Shalom.